there, then that's my, green flag there. I want to wait it out and see.
And I think we're starting. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us this evening, and welcome to the Arizona Capital Times Meet the Candidates. My name is Luige del Puerto, and I'm the associate publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times. I'll be moderating tonight's meet and greet. We would have loved to meet with everybody in person. However, we want to keep the candidates, you, the voters, and our staffers safe from COVID-19. Tonight is the first of a series of Meet the Candidates virtual events. We will do the same thing tomorrow and throughout the week. At this point, I want to thank the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission for sponsoring this series of events. The Clean Elections Commission, the Citizens Clean Elections Commission, administers the Citizens Clean Elections Act, which voters passed in 1998. The act seeks to restore citizen participation and confidence in the political system, improve the integrity of the Arizona state government, and promote freedom of speech under the U.S. and Arizona constitutions. To tell us more, please welcome Gina Roberts, the Voter Education Director of the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. Gina?
Hi, Luigi. Thank you. And hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for tuning into this event to learn more about the candidates running in your district. The reason why Clean Elections sponsored this event is because it's our mission to help voters participate in the political process. Tonight, you have the opportunity to learn more about the candidates that are running in your district and are vying for your vote, and learn a little bit more about what they stand for. It's a timely series because many of you may actually already have your ballots in your hands right now. Early voting started July 8th, and so ballots were already out in the mail. So hopefully many of you already have those if you were expecting one. And I'm hopeful that the tools offered by Clean Elections, such as your voter education guide, which also should have arrived in your mailboxes. It was sent to every household with a registered voter, as well as our debates, which were moderated by the Arizona Capital Times. And of course, the information that we have on our website, and as well as this event tonight. We hope all of these tools help you cast an informed vote. After tonight, if you'd like more information on the candidates, such as their contact information, their website information, and of course, information about the primary election itself, including how to get your ballot if you need one, or if you're planning to vote on election day, where to go, all of that good stuff, you can find it on our website at azcleanelections.gov. Thank you again for tuning in tonight, and I hope you enjoy meeting your candidates.
And thank you, Gina. A few housekeeping notes for tonight's debate. I'm sorry, not debate. I was going to say tonight is not a debate. This is a forum in which the candidates have the opportunity to tell you about their campaigns and perhaps try and persuade you to vote for them. It's also an opportunity for you to send in questions. You can do that by submitting your questions via the YouTube stream on the right side of your screen. If you're watching right now on YouTube, you can see that on the right side of your screen. Just type in your questions. We're monitoring that, and we'll get your questions. The other option is to go to, and this is a bit long, so bear with me, www.aznews.com/act-meet-the-candidates-forum-questions. I know it's a mouthful. Let me just repeat that. www.aznewsservice.com/ACT-MEET-FORUM-QUSTIONS and then /. So that's aznewsservice.com /ACT-meet-the-candidates-forum and -questions. My apologies. Like I said, it was a handful. And at this point, we're going to bring in the candidates into our broadcast room. So bear with us, and we'll take a very short break, and we will be right back. And thank you again for joining us. My name is Luige del Puerto. I'm the associate publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times. With us are candidates from Legislative District 1. I will let the candidates introduce themselves. And perhaps I'll start by asking, why you're running. Tell us a little bit about why you're running, where you're at right now. Maybe you're at home, maybe you're in the office. And I guess how this pandemic has changed the way you're campaigning. Let me start with Judy.
Okay, and there's only one Judy here tonight. So great. I'm Judy Stahl, and I am running for Arizona State House for Legislative District 1 because I want to be able to represent everyone in Legislative District 1. I'm running as a Democrat, and we don't have Democrats elected currently throughout the state legislature, either for the State House or the State Senate for my district. And it's been quite a while since we've had someone from my party. So I'm really happy to bring forward the values and the perspective of someone who has not been represented fully at this point. And, I've lived here a long time and I've worked with everybody and I will work with everyone. My campaign slogan is Stahl for All. I am sitting at home in my home office right now, my home campaign office. But my practice, I've been a massage therapist since 1986, 87. So for many, many years. And as you can imagine, my practice has been completely shut down with this virus. And given my background, I'm also a breast cancer survivor, and I worked for many years with children with children with cancer. So I'm very aware that it's the things that you can't see that will make you sick and could potentially kill you, as this virus could. So I have shut down my practice completely during this time, and I'm working on the phone and through Zoom, doing education and also doing consulting and counseling, which is something that I do. I do coaching. So that's what's going on with me. I hope that I answered your question.
Yep, you did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you cut out a little. Am I next?
Oh yeah, where'd he go?
He disappeared.
I think he was calling your name, Selena.
Yeah. Well, let's wait for him to come back. This happens a lot. I make sure I close all my windows and I reset my internet. So I believe we're being recorded though. So we'll let him join us back here. There's Lisa.
Hey guys, how's it going? Evidently
we lost our host.
So I'm sorry, I don't know who was up next.
I think I was.
Luigi had you next. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Arizona Capital Times and the Clean Elections Commission for sponsoring this opportunity for us candidates to get out and meet folks. It's been very difficult in this time of COVID. I'm Selena Bliss, running for Legislative District 1, and we have 2 open positions in the State House. So this is a very exciting time. I've lived here since 1971, and from what I've seen growing up is that Arizona really thrives with conservative leadership and those prepared to serve. So as such, I've been here since 1971, seen a lot of changes, have a lot of respect for our rich history. I've been a nurse now for 36 years, working at the local community hospital. And the last 25 of those years, I've been a nurse educator here at our community college. So I'm known as the candidate that cares, because it comes very naturally to me, that caring and that passion for public. I'm also come from a family of public servants. My grandfather served in the South Dakota State House for 16 years. And for much of that, he was in appropriations. He chaired appropriations. So I grew up always knowing that someday I would step up and serve like he did, and prepared myself to make these difficult decisions that I watched him do. As you get to know me and the other candidates, you'll be able to see we're all very unique. I'm an optimist. I believe with a lot of hard work and effort, we can make great things happen here in Arizona. I'm a patriot. I believe in hard work and family values. I am a conservative Republican. If you want to read more about me, I invite you to go to my website at selenabliss.com. That's SELINA, selena.com. I put a lot of information out there. I believe in transparency. So you're going to see a lot of video clips, a lot of stuff on my bio, a lot of pictures and press. So you can compare and contrast the candidates running for this position. My priorities include economic opportunity, excellence in education, and quality health care. But those need a solid foundation to build upon. And for me, that's protecting and defending our Constitution and our Republican values and principles here in Legislative District 1. So I'm excited to be here tonight and meet the folks and learn about more of the issues and hear from the other candidates. Thank you, Lisa.
And thank you, Selena. Stephen, go ahead, sir.
So my name's Stephen Sensmeyer. I'm one of the Republican candidates running for Legislative District 1. I'm coming to you this evening from my kitchen table, so for what that's worth. I've grown up here in Legislative District 1 in the Prescott Tri-Cities. I'm a graduate of Prescott High School, and I have my degree in Global Security and Intelligence Studies from the Embry-Riddle Prescott campus. I'm running because we need a champion of conservative values, which I am at the Capitol, but we also need somebody who understands what's going on in our community. And what I've seen going on is what we call brain drain. Our best and our brightest, not just coming out of the high schools and our colleges, but our workforce as well, is being forced to leave rural Arizona because we lack economic opportunity. We need to, as a state, make sure that we take care of our people. And that means we need business-friendly tax structures and less regulation on our businesses so they can employ more people. It means we need good education via school choice, strong public schools, strong charter schools, and strong private schools that allow parents to choose the best environment for their child, and infrastructure. Highways, which we all know are rural highways, need some serious work, but we need internet infrastructure. We need water, we need power, we need all of these things that are critical going forward. And that's why I'm running, because we need somebody to speak up for those issues. And as far as COVID,
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
I knocked on almost 4,000 doors before the COVID spike happened. It's forced me to not knock nearly as many doors. I'm doing a lot of digital campaigning these days. It's a little weird. I've been working campaigns for 12 years. And this is a very, very unique election.
Yep. Thanks for that. And I'm sorry, I popped out of the room there for a minute or so. So I apologize for that. So let's entertain some of the questions from our viewers and our listeners. So here's one. As you know, the governor and superintendent of public instruction in the state have delayed the opening of the schools to August 17. By the way, that's my birthday, August 17. Would you physically send your child, your grandchild, or nephew, niece, family member to school? And let me start with Stephen.
I don't have children, just being forthright there. But if I did, I think I would. I think in-person education is tremendously important. I think we clearly need to take precautions. I come from a family of educators. My father is a college professor who's in the classroom right now, every day teaching students with precautions, with face masks, with shields, with social distancing. I really think that's tremendously important. In addition to that, at-home education based online is disproportionately harmful to low-income families who don't have access to the high-speed internet and computers necessary to do home education. So I really think we need to put an emphasis on returning to the classroom in the fall.
What about Judy? What are your thoughts, ma'am?
Oh, thank you. If I had, my children are 32 and 25 almost. So, and I don't have any grandkids yet, hopefully someday soon. But no, I would not send my children to school at this point in time. And I'm running a fully virtual campaign at this point in time because public health has to come first. And we've heard about the teachers down in Tucson who were teaching in summer school, and they ended up, just because they were teaching in the same room, one of them ended up dying of COVID-19. So sadly, our governor and, all the way up the line have not managed this pandemic in a way that puts public health first. We know that in other nations, they've been able to shut down the virus. And in fact, My understanding is that in the state of New York, it's the first day since March that they have not had one COVID-related death, because people came together and worked together and were concerned about each other. And the fact is, what needs to happen is that we do need to put in all of the good wisdom that has come out so far about this virus, and that frankly came out when we had the pandemic back in the teens, in the 1918, 17, 18, whenever exactly that it was. So social distancing, wearing masks, hand washing, testing, contact tracing, and isolating, that has not happened in our state. And Arizona, sadly, under the leadership or lack of leadership of our current Republican governor, has left us one of the worst hotspots in the entire world. And what I heard today is that it's possible that 1 in 3 Arizonans have been exposed to and actually have had or have the virus, whether it's asymptomatic or not. So no, we have to take care of our families first and our teachers,
So
and
the
that
answer is
can't
no.
be done safely.
Yeah. Thank you, Judy. And Selena, the same question to you, ma'am. If you had a child or grandchild or nephew, niece, family member, would you send the child to school? And
So my child, if you will, is 33, and I am also hoping for grandchildren. And like Stephen, yes, I would send my child to school. Now, there's some considerations to take, however. When you calculate risk, and I work with wildland firefighters, we use the science, and what we look at is the probability times the severity. So certainly if you have under the severity column premorbidities or comorbidities, that is the risk. So that might change your decision. But each individual needs to decide upon themselves what's best for their child, what's best for their family. Do you have a child living with grandparents? Maybe that perceived risk is not worth sending the child. But that probability is look at individual case rates by zip code or school districts, figure out the severity, and that would be the comorbidities. And that's that individual's calculated risk. I'm also an educator at the community college. My mom taught K through 12. Dad was also at the community college. So I've been talking to a lot of educators and asking them, what do you see happening this fall? And there's a variety of responses that creative ways to approach this. They're looking at the younger kids, breaking a class of 30 up into cohorts of 10, and each 10 comes in at a 3 to 4 hour block. Now that's for the young kids. The older kids, they're looking at perhaps coming to school full day Monday, Wednesday, and then a separate cohort on Tuesday, Thursday. I'm hearing a lot of creative approaches to social distancing, the masking, depending on age appropriate approaches. So I'm really pleased with the conversations going on here and the positivity, but calculating the data and the risk. Someone mentioned the 1918 flu. I just want to point out that was devastating to the young. It would kill a young person within 24 to 48 hours. This COVID-19, the coronavirus 2, is different in that it affects our elderly more. So the proportion of young children getting sick and dying is not proportionately the same as the 1918 flu. So here's where I think we all in the room, the virtual room here, agree on the data and the science. So excellent and timely question.
And so let me ask you just a quick question, because you're from District 1. One of your, the incumbent legislator from District 1, Representative Noah Campbell, introduced a gas tax hike. The idea is that we haven't really raised a gas tax hike for several decades. That's been in the legislature, and the chances of that being introduced again, regardless of Mr. Campbell is not going back, of course, next year, but that chances of that getting introduced again are pretty high. So just really quickly, let me start with Stephen. Would you support a gas tax hike similar to what Representative Noah Campbell, who's also a Republican, has introduced?
No, I wouldn't. I've worked with Representative Campbell. I've helped on his campaigns. This is one of the few areas where he and I disagree.
Okay.
What I'd like to see is a transition to a different gas tax model.
That's perfect. And Judy?
I'm not sure that I would. I appreciate that Representative Campbell has been trying to get some things actually done at the state legislature and has been turned down by his, folks from his own party. I'm not sure that I would, and I'm not sure right now what my answer would be otherwise on that. So I'm going to have to pass.
Selena?
Yeah, that's a negative. No on the gas tax hike. This is not a good time to be increasing taxes. People are suffering, especially from the pandemic. I propose we look at alternative sources of funding. And Stephen and I have been talking about that alternative model, and he's come up with a brilliant idea that I'd like to see pursued in the future, but it does not involve gas tax hike.
So we're out of time, and I really appreciate your joining us, being so patient for this this virtual Meet the Candidates. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I'm going to give you just real quick, just one word, if you will, to our voters. If you can say one word, what would it be? Let me start with Judy.
Balance.
Selena?
Vote.
And Stephen?
Conservative.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And
Thank you, Luigi.
I'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Luigi.
And to our viewers and listeners, we're going to bring the other candidates in. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to the Arizona Capital Times, Meet the Candidates. My name is Luige del Puerto, and I'm the associate publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times, the Arizona News Service. If you don't have a subscription, by the way, let me know. You must have a subscription. It's essential. It's an essential part of, I guess, if you really want to know what's going on politically in the state, you must have an Arizona Capital Times subscription. If you're just joining us, we are here with Deborah McEwen and Mark Workman, who is running, if I'm not mistaken, in Legislative District. And remind me again, Mark, which district?
Legislative District 2.
Perfect. And so I think I'm going to start off with just asking Deborah and Mark, just really quickly, why you're running, and a little bit about yourself, and also how the pandemic has, changed the way you're campaigning. Let me start with Deborah.
Well, thank you, Luigi. Yes, I decided to run for the House of Representatives in LD2. I think that my career with the criminal justice field can do a lot to bring a lot of areas together, whether it's education, healthcare, the border issues, our economy issues. And so I am working very hard at getting caught up on learning a lot about that and interested in sharing that and working with people in the legislature. It's been hard with COVID. We haven't been getting out and meeting and greeting a lot of people one-on-one, but I have been participating in a lot of webinars and being able to communicate with people, just like we're doing today with the questions and answers. So I'm ready for them.
Perfect. And Mark, tell us a little bit something about yourself, why you're running, and how this pandemic might have modified the way you're campaigning.
Certainly. My name is Mark Workman. I'm running for the Senate position here in Legislative District 2. After graduating high school in Tombstone, I joined the Air Force, where I spent 23 years as an aircraft mechanic, retiring out of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base as an E8 Senior Master Sergeant, having earned 3 degrees, including my master's in business administration. I spent a little over 10 years of my military career as a victims advocate for the sexual assault response coordinator and teaching classes around the base on bystander intervention and sexual assault and harassment prevention. After I got out, I've also spent, I also spent a long time working on the community, volunteering with the Special Olympics and Muscular Dystrophy Associations. And all that come together, and it's just that big desire to serve our community and to work with people and just basically making life better. as best as I can for everybody else. That's been my motivation to run. And when I decided to run, it was before all this pandemic stuff happened. So I was all focused on, the education and community relations and stuff like that. This pandemic has obviously hit a lot of people very hard financially. It's hit them hard socially, their mental health as long as their physical health. And I really look forward to getting into office and working with all the individuals and the different branches of the state government and trying to go through the lessons learned on how the state responded to this pandemic and make things smoother and more efficient and more effective the next time we get in. And I believe my military career background and my time working with organizations like the Special Olympics will assist me in that.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Deborah. I think we're going to entertain some of the audience and our viewers' questions. And so here's one. Governor Doug Ducey has prohibited large gatherings and ceased the issuance of new special event licenses and paused the operations of bars and gyms and movie theaters, water parks, tubing rentals. In addition, he has required restaurants to open only at 50% capacity. That happened a couple of days ago. Do you agree with these measures? Why or why not? Let me start with Deborah.
I do not agree with these measures. I think there needs to be some more deliberative decision-making made based on the location of these venues and the types of people that would be going to them. We obviously have to be very aware and cautious and safety-minded around our elderly and those people who are physically compromised with some comorbidity. That's a very serious matter. Our restaurants and venues are already complying with overburdensome regulations and health codes and things like that. Now they're going above and beyond with extra cleaning, extra measures, and it's going to be an additional cost to them. Is it really going to be worth a business's time to put that kind of money and effort into opening a restaurant or a venue at 50% staff, 50% customers? So we need to be a little bit more deliberate on who we're going to apply these things to. You have city areas and rural areas, and just a variety of venues that economically are targeted towards, let's say, lower income people. The free things that you offer over the 4th of July at the water, the lakes, the parks where people get out, are really targeting lower income people who can't afford to go on big vacations or travel distances and spend a lot of money. So I disagree with that program and policy, and I think it should be much more deliberately laid out by the areas where where it affects these people the most.
So you're saying it should depend on where. There should be some more, I guess, flexibility in terms of who might get affected, for example. And
Yes.
Got it. So what about Mark? What are your thoughts about the governor's actions so far, specifically when it comes to, only or requiring restaurants to only open up like 50% of their capacity?
It's so tough. I mean, it's a lot easier to sit back here and second guess everything, and challenge where he's at. He's the one in that position who's making these decisions, knowing that no matter how he makes that decision, people's lives are going to be affected. These large events, the big sporting events, stuff like that. It's a mass gathering of people, and doing that is inviting additional risk. The part I don't understand is why it's okay to go to a casino but not a gym. Why it's okay to go to a big box store but not to church. It seems a little inconsistent in that. I do like the limiting capacities of some places so that you don't have those mass gatherings, but there's some restaurants out there whose entire capacity sitting there is 15 to 20 people. These are very small restaurants and very small organizations that are already operating on a shoestring and already struggling, and they've gotten small business loans but they're already going to spend years trying to pay back those loans and try to dig out of that hole that they're in now. So it's a very fine line on when we can get these businesses operating at full capacity and get the government out of their way while still trying to prevent any further spread of the virus as much as possible. I believe the virus will spread. It is a virus, it's not just going to stop and go away, but it's a very difficult decision to make. And I got to commend the governor, and that's the job. And it's a tough thing to do.
I do want to ask you, because one of the things that one of the I suppose the ideas out there is that maybe the legislature should be in session, either to try to be a check on the governor's authority, or maybe to offer more concrete solutions, maybe in the way of legislation.
I do agree with that.
What
I do
about?
agree.
Go ahead, Mark.
I do agree that the legislators should be in session. They should be operating as a check on the governor. I mean, that's the entire foundation of the U.S. Constitution, our federal government, all that is checks and balances. So no one person could ever have too much power. I think that's one of the lessons learned that we need to develop here after all this is done, when the legislature's back in session, is what kind of checks and balances can be in place, what kind of override, if the government or the governor is doing something that the legislators don't agree with, can enough of them vote to override the governor? Again, it's that checks and balances philosophy that's made this country so strong in our past at the federal level that I think we need to bring into the state level. And also, like you said, having those people there talking with our constituents throughout our district and providing that information to the governor and the different options, I think we can work out better ideas than just a simple open these businesses but close these businesses.
What about Deborah? What are your thoughts, ma'am?
Yes, the legislature's job is to make laws and rules, and who would best know that but the legislature? And they would have a lot of variety of opinions and input into that to come up with the best possible solution. And when they do that, they would also have to take into consideration the length of time that these executive orders would last. We can't have this going on forever and ever and ever. So there has to be a start and stop cycle that is looked at and that's fair to everybody. And also the different districts would be able to voice their opinion about, is this good for the small little county of Santa Cruz County? Or is this going to apply just to the Phoenix area? So these things have been forgotten along the way. You cannot have just a blanket covering of executive orders and legislation. They have to have input by the people that do that and that represent the constituents and their voices. That's why our legislature is there, to represent the people and what the people want. And we're smart people. We know that, yes, COVID is serious and we have to do everything we can. But I think the people of the whole state of Arizona are the ones who should decide where and when they're going to wear masks, if they even want to, and whether or not they're going to open their businesses, and how they're going to treat the elderly in the nursing homes. So these are cases of legislative district specific issues that the legislature should have input in with the governor.
I do wonder, in your case, do you wear a mask when you go outside?
No, I don't.
And give us a reason for that, because a lot of people who are listening or viewing this one would probably say, why would you not wear a mask? If you heard the health officials down from, Dr. Kara Chris down, they would say wear a mask.
Okay, I'll clarify. When I go outside, I do not wear a mask. When I am in a closed building or room with many other people, and they are requiring that masks be worn, I will do that for the sake of the other people there. I understand that people, the elderly, are more susceptible, and people, you have no idea what their other health conditions may be. But when I'm in public or in an open shopping area, a large store area, I prefer not to wear one. I particularly have a problem with low oxygen level. So I have to watch where I go so I don't have to wear a mask, because it's more dangerous for me. And so there are many different issues. And besides, I am also a scientist and worked for many years in the forensic science field in a laboratory setting. And the whole science behind wearing a mask and what you're breathing in, what you're breathing out, and how it fits your face. And even if you have it on right, all affects the effectiveness of that mask. And I know enough about it to know that the masks that these people are wearing are not effective to protect them from the virus.
What about Mark? It's kind of interesting take from Deborah, but what about in your case? Do you wear a mask when you're outside in
Depends on
public?
where I'm at. As you said, if I'm walking across the parking lot and there's nobody within 100 feet of me, I won't have one on. But I always have one in my pocket. When I go into a grocery store or something like that, I put it on. Anytime I'm within arm's length or even 10, 15 feet of people who've chosen to wear a mask, I will put one on out of respect of their decision and their right to do so. If I'm in a group of people, say that nobody's wearing one, then no, I would not wear one, being the only person there wearing it. But again, it's respect out of the people's right to have a mask on. If somebody were to walk up to me to talk to me as a candidate wearing a mask, then I would make sure I get it on before they get too close, out of respect for their health and their right to choose that for themselves.
Deborah and Mark, thank you so much for your time. We are out of time. I'd love to have more opportunity to actually dig into some of these issues. So I do want to thank you. If you're gonna just leave us with one word for the voters, I do wonder what pops up in your mind, Deborah.
One word for the voters
Yep.
Would be accountability.
And
Accountability in government.
and Mark.
I'd say transparency, what the government's doing to help protect and provide for the people, as well as staying out of their lives as much as they can.
And Deborah and Mark, thank you again for spending this evening with us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And to our viewers and listeners, we will be right back with more candidates. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being so patient. I really appreciate it. Lisa's gonna give us a signal and tell us like when we can start, and it should be just like 30 seconds from now. Good evening to everybody. If you're just joining us, this is the Arizona Capital Times Meet the Candidates, and we have with us Joel John and Representative Jeray Peaton, who are running in Legislative District 4. I think I'm going to start with just asking Joel
Sure.
and Representative Peaton to tell us a little bit about yourselves, why you're running, and I guess how this pandemic has changed or modified or altered your campaigns. And Joel, by the way, don't worry about the background noise. If my kids comes in waltzing in here, it is what it is. This is what happens when you're working from home. So don't worry too much about it. In fact, let me start with Joel. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Joel John. I'm a candidate for the House of Representatives here in Legislative District 4. A little bit about me. I'm actually from Buckeye, from District 4, practically born and raised. I went to public schools here. My parents are farmers in the area. I run a small business. It's a small agricultural irrigation business, small family business. I'm a former teacher as well. I taught music in the Buckeye Elementary School District for a few years. And mostly why I'm running is, I want to make doing business easier. I want to reduce any unnecessary burdens, unnecessary regulatory burdens on businesses, so that, much of District 4, there's a lot of small businesses in District 4. They provide a lot of our essential goods and services and a lot of hardworking people. And I want to ease that burden so that good, hardworking people can be able to run their businesses, be able to create more jobs, provide more employment to people, increase incomes, and be able to provide those goods and services that we need. I also want to be able to support education, being a former educator, being a former public school student, and my kids attend public schools as well. So support education, support small business.
John, you mentioned, I'm sorry, Joel, Joel, you mentioned you're a music teacher. Which music?
I got a degree in music education from Northern Arizona University, and I taught in the Buckeye Elementary School District, kindergarten through 8th grade music for a few years. And, one of the reasons I left, pay was an issue. I actually drove semi trucks during the summers in order to make ends meet because I'd had a commercial driver's license for many years as well. So it was just something I was pretty good at, music, and got a degree in it. And got in the classroom and had a lot of fun, enjoyed it, and now I'm helping my family in our agricultural irrigation business and our businesses throughout. So,
thank you again. And Representative Peden, tell us a little bit about yourself. I can see that you're just at home. How has this how has this pandemic changed the way you're campaigning?
Well, it has. Thank you for having this session, this forum. I appreciate being included and participating. Well, it has it's turned the world upside down, I think. I think I was one of the first of the representatives to request remote voting, and Speaker Bowers granted that the next day. So I have been very cautious about interacting with the public. So you're right, I'm home. It's the safest place to be, and probably the least restrictive. I don't have to wear a mask at home, so I'm good. But I moved here to Arizona in 1992. So I've been here for 28 years. I moved from New Jersey. I've been a lifelong educator. That has been the major portion of my career. I was a teacher for 18 years. Then I became an assistant principal, a principal. I was also a construction manager for about 6 years. I have a master's degree in supervision and administration, and as well as construction management. And then I retired as a school superintendent. So I also have a doctorate from NAU in curriculum and instruction. So with all of that, you can imagine that education is my main priority. I think that education, a good quality, high quality education, gives people more options. You have options with which how to live and how to create a better lifestyle for yourself. Without a quality education, it's very difficult to survive. And I too know that. When I first moved here, I was just a teacher. And I had to work one full-time job and 3 part-time jobs to create a decent living for myself and my children. So education to me is one of my main priorities. I would like the teachers to be able to earn a living wage and work one job. And not just teachers, but I think that our economy needs to be strengthened to the point that everyone can have a quality life with working one living wage job. So, and why am I running? for those reasons. One of the most startling things
Sorry, Representative Peden. I need. Sorry if I'm going to cut you off. That we don't have a whole lot of time, so let me get to the audience questions at this point, because I want to get to at least one or two of those, and I think they're actually education questions. So you'll like these questions. As you know, the governor and the superintendent of public instruction have delayed the opening of schools to August 17. Would you, if you have school-age kids, would you physically send your children, or grandchildren, nephews, nieces to school? Let me start with Joel.
Yeah, thank you. I'll actually next year I got 4 kids. Next year they'll all be in public school. I'll have a freshman, and then my oldest and my youngest will be a kindergartner. My wife and I, we kind of discussed it, and we think we would send them back. Ultimately, I think that kind of thing, it should be. I'm a believer in local control, and I don't know if you can hear that. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it. Seems like a pretty lively house you got there, Joel.
I will try not to be distracted by that. I believe in local control, and I think a lot of those decisions, I like to see as many as possible, maybe by local school districts. That way, those of us that live and work in this community, we can be the ones to determine, hey, what is our comfort level as far as opening, as far as sending our kids back, as far as when to open. And like I said, let it be up to the local communities, local school districts. We certainly can make those decisions with, the residents, the parents, the voters, the superintendent, the school board. And so, like that, my wife and I, we've discussed it. We've kind of gone back and forth. I think we're comfortable with sending them back in August. We kind of think they're getting a little restless, and get them out of the house a little bit. Get them back, socializing with their fellow peers and things like that. They've helped me out a little bit with work during the summer, but like I said, I think that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, I'll have 4 kids in public schools this next year. So I think as it stands now, I think we're comfortable with sending them back. That may change, but, like I said, we'll see.
And what about Representative Peden? What about you, ma'am? If you have grandkids or nephews, nieces, members of the family that are school-age kids, would you send them back to school physically at this point?
Well, at this particular time, the verdict is out on that. I think they're still looking at the research and how the virus is progressing or emerging and evolving. So I would totally depend on the advice of the health professionals and the scientific research, and to see what it reveals, to determine whether schools are a safe place for students to be. I don't think we've got to get it right. It needs to be a safe place, not only for the students, but for the staff, the entire staff that runs the school, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the custodians, the secretaries, the teachers, everyone. And that's a lot of people to have together. So we definitely need to make sure that it's going to be safe, and we won't have to open up and then discover that we have the virus has contaminated some individual or what have you have to close down again. So I would wait for the final decision on our health and scientific professionals to advise us how we should proceed. I do have doctor before my name, but that's a doctorate in education, not medicine. So thank you.
Thank you for that. So let's stick to the K-12 issue, if you will. So as you know, one of the things that the K-12 community is asking for, or had asked for, probably will be asking the legislature to do, is to allow them the flexibility in terms of being able to count kids for the purposes of getting their school budget. As you know, you're well aware, it's all about ADM counts, right? Especially the 100-day ADM counts. That's how the schools are, that's how they get their funding. And so they're asking for, the K-12 community is asking for effectively options so that they can count kids that may be in a hybrid, schooling, or maybe in an online schooling, some sort of a lot of flexibility in their ability to count kids so they can get the budget, right? So that's one. The other thing they'll probably be asking for is to make them whole if their enrollment dropped down significantly. Let me ask Joel, what your thoughts are on that.
I guess I don't see a problem with it. Like I said, I believe in local control and knowing the superintendent of the school where my kids attend school, and knowing the superintendent that I worked under here in Buckeye. I would rely on them for information like that. Rely on people that I know in the community that work in education, and rely on school board members who I know, who I work closely with, and some of our local meetings. So if that's something that they think is necessary in order to continue to be able to, for the schools to be able to continue to be able to operate as normally as possible, I don't see a problem with that. And I think the local school districts, they probably know best how to be able to try to make counts as far as being able to determine what the counts are. Those that are attending the schools in person, those are doing so virtually. So those are some of the people I rely on to make that decision. And I don't see a problem with allowing the flexibility for the school districts, especially in these unprecedented times. We got to try to do what's best, try our best to return normalcy as much as possible, and work together in order to support our schools and support our students, support our teachers. So like I said, I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Joel. Representative Peden, the same question, ma'am.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the schools, the K-12 community, I imagine, will be asking the legislature, flexibility in terms of their ability to count kids, right, so that they can get the budget that they're hoping for, or they're budgeted for. And I think they're likely also to ask the state legislature to keep them whole in case their enrollment drops, significantly, and they don't have the same amount of kids that they had like the previous year.
Okay, well, that's an excellent question. And that is one of our major concerns because it involves funding for education. And I serve on the Education Committee in the House of Representatives. And one of our main points, especially during this pandemic and with everything in a flux as it is, we want to press upon the state to allow prior year funding and not based on this year's funding, because as you said, the adequate daily membership, the ADM, that the state uses to count and provide funds for the school it's not going to be reliable. Schools are coming with, schools do have the right to decide what type of scheduling they want to do or how they want to run their school day. So some schools are having a hybrid. Some have, some schools, students come on Monday, Wednesday, whatever, and others come on Tuesday and Thursday. Some students can be taught part-time virtually and others full-time virtually. So what we would like to support that flexibility is to base the funding on the prior year's funding. And that way the schools will have some idea of what amounts of funding they will get. And then the other thing we need to have adjusted at the legislature is to allow online learning, because what we call to count the students in their seats, whether they're home or in the classroom, should be the same, so that if they're being taught remotely or in a brick and mortar school, they still should be counted, and funding should be provided for them, the funding and the resources that they need. So right now, as I said, things are really, truly in an incredible flux. So we won't know until, I guess, the governor and the superintendent of schools and governing boards decide on how we should proceed.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So here's one question. What is your position on the Smart and Safe Arizona initiative? This is the proposal. This is the ballot measure that would allow for or legalize recreational or adult use of marijuana. Let me ask Joel. What are your thoughts on that one, sir?
I guess I generally don't support that. I'm concerned with some of the safety of our communities. when it comes to the recreational use of marijuana. And like that's something that concerns me, just the safety issues. I think in other states that have legalized it, they've, perhaps seen increases in, traffic incidences and things like that. So, really right now, I'm not a supporter of that initiative.
Okay. And Representative Peden, ma'am, the same question?
Am I in support of recreational marijuana?
Yep.
Not for myself personally.
Okay.
But I think, when you think about it, so many lives have been destroyed because of the use of marijuana, specifically for recreational purposes, not for, they're not drug dealers or anything like that. And a lot of people use marijuana for not only recreational, but medical reasons. So it's really a line there. And it's difficult. And I just think that too many people have been, this state is I think the 4th in the nation for mass incarceration. And so many people have been incarcerated for years for use of marijuana. And I think that there's something dreadfully wrong with that. I mean, there are other drugs like meth and cocaine and alcohol and all kinds of things that people can be arrested for. So why totally focus in on marijuana?
So if you had to vote, let's say that it's in the legislature, that proposal is in the legislature, and you're on the floor and you had to vote, which way would you go? Because I know you kind of hesitated there for a second. You said that personally you wouldn't be in support of it, but I do wonder that publicly how you would vote on this.
I will legalize marijuana for recreational use, and also, with regard to criminal justice reform, eliminate all of those statutes that arrest people with long jail sentences for using and possessing personal amounts of marijuana.
So thank you for that. So here's another question. Let me just go to the question real quick. Give me like 30 seconds. Black Lives Matter protests continue in downtown Phoenix and throughout Arizona. Many of the protesters believe that we should defund the police and allocate the resources elsewhere. Where do you stand on defunding the police? And I do want to kind of flesh this one out a little bit, because when you hear defund the police, you are really kind of two ideas there, right? One is to completely just do away with budgets for the police. And the other one is, or dismantle the police. That's one idea. And the other one is like, let's reallocate some of the funding for the police and put them in, say, social services. So those are kind of sort of the dominant thoughts when it comes to, this theme or this message, defund the police. Joe, let me ask you, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on defunding the police, no. The police in our communities are a vital, they're a necessity to keep our communities safe. And when it comes to the actions of, officers that behave badly, we should fight for in our local communities, fight for justice to be served for those that were treated unjustly and harshly. I have family members who have told me they've been treated harshly by the police. And, when those things happen, like I said, as a community, we should be willing to stand up for those injustices and hope that the people that are responsible are, they receive, the punishments that they deserve. But when it comes to defunding the police, reducing their budgets, no, I absolutely do not support that.
What about Representative Peden? What are your thoughts, ma'am?
I think that the police definitely needs to be reformed along with criminal justice reform. As a matter of fact, we have put forth a lot, we're crafting several bills that address criminal justice and police officers reform. I don't think we need to totally defund it, but it certainly needs to be restructured. A tremendous amount of money goes to the police department, and a lot of those funds should be spent on mental health, addictions, domestic violence, sexual abuse, all kinds of things that are not necessarily criminal. So it's almost like if you have a hammer, then everything's a nail, and you just bang everything in the world. And that's one of the problems. I think that there are too many things that are criminalized in the state. Because one of the revelations that I realized when I first became a state representative was how many things are criminalized. Just normal day-to-day activities that you can get if you're an African American or a Latino, because there's racial profiling in this state, you can end up with, an excessive amount of time served in jail. So I certainly think that the police should not be burdened with the responsibility of being psychiatrists and drug counselors and domestic violence and all of that. So it definitely needs to be restructured so that it can be more effective, and that they can stop being a disproportionate number of African Americans and Latinos who are killed in the streets, killed in their beds, killed under someone's knee. That has got to stop. So the police need better training, so that they know how to de-escalate a situation, and every situation isn't solved by killing someone. So there's a lot to be done, and I hope we can, when we start the next session, that we can work on creating those type of police reforms.
And Joel and Representative Peden, thank you so much for your time. We are out of time. I want to thank you for your patience and for spending the evening with us. If you have one word for our voters, just before you go, what would it be? Let me start with Joel. One word, sir, for our voters, for your voters. Yep. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Vote.
Vote. Okay. Representative Peden, ma'am.
Vote. That's it.
All right.
Everybody needs to vote. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Heard. Yeah.
Thank you again. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And to our viewers and our listeners, we are going to bring our last batch of candidates in less than a minute or so. Stand by. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Home, ma'am.
I am.
Perfect. Oh, I think we're starting. Again, good evening to our listeners and viewers. If you're just joining us, my name is Luige del Puerto. I'm the associate publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times. And tonight we are holding Meet the Candidates. And with us tonight are candidates from Legislative District 6. And I guess I'm going to start with asking each of you, why you're running for the district, or why you're running for the House or the Senate, and how has the pandemic changed the way you're campaigning? I think I'm going to start with Felicia. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. Well, I'm running, to give you a little bit of background. I'm third generation Arizonan, and I'm running for state senate in District 6, of course. I'm a nurse, an educator, sustainability scientist, and a retired colonel after 32 years in the Army and the Army National Guard. I'm also a proud mom. I'm running first and foremost so that no matter where a child lives, they can attend a great public school. My second priority is to ensure everyone, especially people in our rural communities, including our tribal nations, can have access to quality, affordable health care. Lastly, I want to make our state government more accountable financially. I walked the 800-mile Arizona Trail last spring, and I saw firsthand that we need stronger government accountability to protect Arizona's water and our beautiful open spaces for today's families and our future generations. The COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted inequities in education and healthcare, especially here in northern Arizona. We've seen that healthcare must be a basic right to avoid the double catastrophe of unemployment, lost wages, and a loss of health insurance. With about 22% of the Arizona population without broadband, we see that broadband and internet access must be a basic utility to avoid leaving our rural communities further and further behind in education, healthcare and jobs. I believe Arizonans deserve access to good schools, good healthcare, and the right to government accountability. And that's why I'm running for office.
Thank you, Felicia. Mayor Evans, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, once again, my name is Coral Evans. I'm the mayor of the city of Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm a third generation daughter of Arizona, a small business owner, a former teacher. I was first elected at large in the city of Flagstaff in 2008. I have served 2 terms on the Flagstaff City Council, and I'm finishing my second term as the Flagstaff mayor. I am running first and foremost because I believe in Arizona. I believe in local control for small cities and towns. I believe in education as a former teacher myself and the daughter of a school teacher. I believe in small business and the power of small business. The majority of us in small rural Arizona, we work for a small business. And I believe in our environment. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Definitely, COVID-19 has really emphasized the need for Arizona to have a solid plan, to have a strategic plan, not only to get our economy back online, but to make sure that the rural areas in northern Arizona have what they need to be a part of that discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Representative Blackman, go ahead, sir.
Hello, and thanks for having me this evening. I appreciate sharing this conversation forum with these 2 Americans, and I am just happy to be here. I am Representative Blackman. This is my first term that I am finishing up. I'm looking for a second term. A little bit about me. I spent 21 years in the United States military as a cavalry non-commissioned officer, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan several times. I'm the recipient of the Bronze Star Medal for actions in Fallujah and also actions in Iraq. So I've been serving my country for my whole entire life, and I did it in a real world sense. After I retired from the military in 2016, I opened up a consulting firm and also went to work for the Department of Defense as their sexual assault harassment response program director, where I actually mitigated and built a program on the prevention of sexual harassment and sexual assaults for the United States Army, the Training and Doctrine Command component. After that, I decided to run for office for LD6. I knew that we needed the type of leadership that I had in my toolbox, and I knew that LD6 needed correct representation without overburdensome of the state government. When I was elected in 2018, it was my first time run. I was the highest vote getter in the district. And when I was in office, I also served on several committees that I hope that we talk about tonight. Vice Chairman for Judiciary, Vice Chairman for State and International, where we opened up the trade office between Arizona and Israel. Also regulatory, where we also made completed legislation on how we're doing business in Arizona, and also chaired the Criminal Justice Reform Committee, where my bill 2808 made sweeping reforms, 60-0 out of the House, 8-0 out of the committee, and which would save Arizona $342 million additional a year. I'm proud to be part of a caucus that also passed a budget that is fiscally balanced and has a surplus of $1 billion. So with that, I'll go over for questions.
Thank you, Representative Blackman. So let's go through some of our audience questions. So here's one. Governor Doug Ducey has prohibited large gatherings, seized the issuance of new special event licenses, and paused the operations of bars, gyms, movie theaters, water parks, tubing rentals. In addition, he has required restaurants to open only at 50% capacity. Do you agree with these measures? Why or why not? Let me start with Mayor Evans. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi. I think that Governor Doug Ducey has done a little too late. I was the first mayor in the state of Arizona to close down bars and to put restaurants on delivery and pickup only. At that particular time, the COVID cases in my city was low. I can tell you now, because of the fact that we've opened too early, we opened without any guidance for our restaurants, because we've opened bars, closed bars, and then, we have an issue with what can be open with regards to gyms, hair salons, and things like that. We have put my city and really Northern Arizona and our state at an all-time crisis. 1 in 5 individuals in the state of Arizona now have COVID. We are number 1 in the nation. I can tell you that that's not good for business. Does not really show confidence when you're number 1 in the nation when it comes to COVID cases. I have some suggestions that the governor could do that would be very helpful. First and foremost, he needs to mandate masks. It's one thing to ask people to wear a mask. It's another thing when you have some cities doing it and other cities not doing it. I think he also needs to go ahead and close down restaurants for in dining, in seating. He needs to go ahead and say, let's do delivery and pickup. He really needs to fix the unemployment system that's here in the state of Arizona. I had someone call me today who has not yet received unemployment because it's still an issue. Those are just a few of the things he could do right off the bat to really help us get a handle on what's going on.
Thank you. Let me go to Representative Blackman. Ma'am, I'm sorry, sir. What are your thoughts about the governor's actions so far, specifically when it comes to requiring restaurants to only open up to 50% capacity?
Well, I think he said, it's kind of funny that Mayor Evans would say that the governor acted too late when their city is being sued for acting too soon. They were over their skis when she went out and began to put those expectations out to her city, which she should do because she's the mayor. So when she's talking about that the mayor or the governor should mandate masks, she's the executive of that city. She should be able to do that herself without the guidance of the governor. If she needs a governor to be able to do that for her, then I would ask, why is she in that seat anyway? The business owners know best how to mitigate this. We have to learn how to walk and chew gum. And that's where the state needs to go, and that's where the governor is going. The state is also passed a skinny budget for COVID monies to be able to let cities handle their issues and let mayors be able to make those decisions on the ground. And that's what leadership is all about. We don't need big government. We don't need we don't need the state mandating what our towns and cities do when we have a competent city council and mayor. We need to do that again. I don't know why mayors need the hand-holding of the governor.
So Representative Blackman, let me I guess go back to the question, right? So what are your thoughts of the governor actually requiring, among other things, closing bars, closing gyms? You can't go tubing in the South River. And, if you have to go into a restaurant, if you have to go dine in a restaurant, you have to wear a mask. That's a mandate statewide that you have to wear a mask when you go into a restaurant. And if you're a restaurant, you can only open up to 50% of your, space. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, business owners are smart enough to be able to mitigate this. We need to allow business owners to, whenever someone comes into their restaurant, if they want to put a mask on their door that says that they shouldn't wear a mask or they should wear a mask, that should be up to the individual local establishment. We should mandate from the state level, particularly when we're talking about these types of issues, what a citizens of Arizona can do or cannot do. We're starting to get real close to violating a person's constitutional rights when we do that. Now, if a person is sick, you stay home. If you are considerate about other folks that are sick, wear a mask. If you are concerned about whether or not you have the COVID virus, do what I did. Go and take a test and make sure you're continuing to take tests. But closing down businesses is not the way to continue to grow Arizona's economy. That is just not going to get it. We should be able to walk and chew gum. And I think we can do that as a state. And I believe that cities and towns should be able to.
So thank you for that. Felicia, go ahead, ma'am. What are your thoughts about the governor's action so far, and specifically when it comes to statewide mandates?
Well, first and foremost, I think government's responsibility is to protect its citizens. And one of the ways you do that is by mandating, following the CDC, Johns Hopkins, and well-established organizations that we are very trusted and reputable, and listen to their guidelines. They're the experts. I am a nurse as well as a senior medical advisor in the military for 32 years in almost every capacity of medical. When I was in Afghanistan, I was a senior medical advisor there. When I was in Arizona National Guard, I was a senior medical advisor there for over 5,000 soldiers in Arizona. So I know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We wouldn't be in the situation we are now if the governor had mandated right away. He saw it coming. Our country saw it coming. We saw Europe. We saw Asia. We saw it coming. To me, it doesn't make sense to not have done something beforehand. I took the opportunity when COVID happened. Our campaign changed and we were starting to make phone calls instead of being in person. I volunteered as a nurse on the Navajo Nation for a month, and President Jonathan Nez there, even though COVID-19 affected them and the Navajo and the Hopi much more adversely than it did the rest of the population, he immediately just made it mandatory mask wearing, curfews. Everyone had testing, tracing, all that. And now it has gone down, and while the rest of the state is going up. So he's doing something right over there. And if you look at best practices around the world, around the country as well as the world, the COVID-19 is going down because they're doing those things, protecting their citizens first. What good is a business if you don't have employees there to work it? If they're all sick and people don't, I'm sorry, over 130,000 deaths in this country, to me, is unconscionable. And again, as leaders, our responsibility as a commander, when I was in the National Guard, my first responsibility is to protect our soldiers and give them every opportunity to be protected. Obviously, sometimes you can only do so much, but you have it within your power to protect your people, then you do so.
So while this is not technically a debate, Representative Blackman did directly ask Mayor Evans. So I do want to give you the opportunity, if you want to answer Representative Blackman, just real quick on the points that he had raised.
So I would just say that the moment the governor decided to give local control back to mayors of cities and towns, I implemented a mask ordinance. I can also tell you, as a business owner myself, one of the things that we need to do is we need to build consumer confidence. When you have people that are not going to go out, not participate in the economy, that is bad for business. When Arizona is on the front page of national newspapers, when Arizona is being talked about because of the lack of leadership and consistent leadership, that is bad for business.
Thank you for that. So let me ask you a question that you will be facing if you get elected to the legislature, which is that there is a very high probability that in fiscal year 2021 the state's going to be facing a deficit. Right now, it seems like last numbers I saw, it seems like we might not have a deficit in fiscal year 2020, current fiscal year. But in 2021, that's very uncertain. If you were in a position where you have to cut funding, what would you cut? How would you go about it? And let me begin with Representative Black.
Thanks for that. Okay, so the first thing when people talk about if we have a deficit is where to cut. So we need to look in the opposite direction. First of all, we have $1 billion surplus. We had one last year. We have another one this year because we passed a sound budget. Number two, we need to look for ways to create revenue in the state of Arizona. For example, my bill 2808 creates $432 million worth of additional funding and revenue for the state of Arizona. So instead of looking at trying to raise taxes or look at where we can cut. Let's look at what we've been doing. Let's take it back to the drawing board and see where we can create that revenue. We also need to get private partners and business folks together as we're conducting these processes of where we are able to get funding. We also need to do something called a Lean Six Sigma. And Lean Six Sigma takes a good look at the processes and analysis of the components and of what's going on and the state government to make sure we're not using systems that are inflated. Where we can actually make good use of taxpayer dollars. So instead of looking at where we can cut, I am a proponent and a leader of looking at where we can create revenue and come up with new innovative ideas to move Arizona forward.
Thank you. Felicia, the same question, ma'am. If you had to cut, if that's the situation you're faced in, what would you cut and how would you go about it? Ma'am, I think you're muted.
Thank you. First and foremost, I think we often look at cutting things instead of seeing conserving. Sustainability, we call it the low-hanging fruit. We try to conserve energy, water before we start implementing more expensive measures. And our government wastes a lot. I saw it time and time again, the federal government, the state government. So we need to look at, see where we're wasting money first, where there's redundancies that we don't need. And we need to start looking at how we can save money on energy by going solar, going renewable energy. We can save government money, energy bills, water bills, and reduce we can increase jobs, first of all, drastically, clean energy jobs by doing that. It's a win-win situation. Clean energy jobs, cleaner air, save us money by having, so the military's done that. You cannot go on a base in this country, this world, when the DOD has made solar energy, thermal energy, wind where applicable, and it's saved them millions and millions of dollars by doing that. And because they see all this as a national security issue, our reliance on foreign fuels or fossil fuels, because it's finite. So that was one way to cut it. It's a cut funding, save money, and win-win, giving clean energy jobs to our economy. So that would be one of the first things I would do. And then I'd look at how we finance our education. That needs to be a priority. We're so on the bottom in the state. That's another one of the many embarrassing things about Arizona. In addition to having the highest COVID ratings, we have the lowest education as far as teacher pay, teacher retention, and classroom sizes are high. So we need to really start looking at that, reallocating our funds for education, because it brings business to Arizona. So, and that's a win-win situation.
Thank you. And Mary Evans.
Well, my grandpa always used to tell me that if you watch your pennies, they turn into dollars. So first and foremost, I'd like to know where our money is going and what we are doing with our money. Are we using it appropriately? Second, who is actually paying into our system? Who's paying what taxes and who's not paying what taxes to help the overall system, the overall state run? It's my understanding that something like 75% of our larger corporations are not paying sales tax, or not paying state tax. So I'd like to understand that even better. I'd also like to understand how much money are we investing in the private prison system? First and foremost, it is absolutely critical that we make sure that our education system is there and works not only for pre through 12, but also our adult learners. We are moving into a new norm. We are going to have to figure out that some of these jobs are not coming back. So what are our adults going to do to make sure that they can earn a good living and a good livelihood for their families? So that is how I would go about looking at our budget.
So I do have just one quick question. We are almost out of time, but I do want to ask this question. And really what I'm looking for is just a yes or a no. Representative Noel Campbell, who's a Republican from District 1, LD1, proposed a gas tax hike. His idea is that we haven't raised the gas tax for several decades, and so we're behind on our ability to collect from gas taxes, and cars are becoming more efficient, more fuel efficient. And so if that is before you, how would you vote? Yes or no? Let me start with Representative.
Did you ask me?
Yes, sir. How would you vote on this proposal? Yes or no?
No.
Mayor Evans?
Yes.
Felicia?
Again, I would look at where the other funding first before we do that, because oftentimes with the gas taxes or any tax, you can hurt other people, unintended consequences of hurting the average worker. So we have to look at, again, without having to raise taxes, look at how our revenue from other places.
And we are out of time. If you were to leave just one word for the voters in your district, what would it be? Mayor Evans, just one word, ma'am, for your voters.
I am Arizonan.
Felicia,
Responsibility.
Representative Blackman.
Leadership.
And with that, I want to thank you again for joining us this evening. I want to thank you for spending the time. Enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe out there. And to our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much for this opportunity. And enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe. And I guess I'll see you when I see you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe and sane.